My name is Steve, and I'm from Hagerstown, Maryland. And I was born and raised in this area and raised by a very large Catholic family, considerably. I'm the oldest of 9 children. And throughout my high school and teenage years, I very strongly discerned the priesthood. And so the Eucharist has always had a very real presence in my life and the way that I lived out my faith. When I was a senior in high school, between the years of 2004 and 2005, John Paul II actually made it the year of the Eucharist. And it was at that time that he put in his encyclical that the Eucharist was the source and summit of the Christian faith. And whenever I thought of that, the vision that I always had was that of a lighthouse. And I've always held on to that since high school, going into my college years and my adolescent years. And no matter what I did, whether I was making the right choices or the wrong choices, I always had that vision of the lighthouse for my faith to come back to. I ran into a lot of friends who would do things in their life that they regretted, and they would tell me that they used to go to church as a kid, but they didn't think that even Jesus himself would be excited to see them if he came back. And I really believe that that is because of a lack of belief in the Eucharist, because the church teaches us that there is a nuptial relationship between Christ and the church, where there is almost a marriage, so to speak, between Christ and his church. And now, just recently, I celebrated my 3rd anniversary with my wife. That's just been a lot more real to me, because the Eucharist is what brings you back to the church at all times. It's like a magnet, a lighthouse. And when I met my wife, one of the first things that she told me when we were talking about our faith was that the biggest impact that she had, that had the biggest impact on her in her faith was the Eucharist. And that really drove home to me that no matter who you met in your faith, in the Catholic Church, that is the center, is the Eucharist. We have 7 beautiful sacraments, but the Eucharist is the actual presence of Jesus Christ here physically with us. And Lent is a beautiful time to think about the Eucharist and the priesthood as well. I chose as my confirmation saint, St. John Vianney, who's the patron saint of the priesthood. And one of my favorite stories of St. John Vianney is Satan would come to his bedroom multiple times in his life, and it got to the point where it didn't faze him at all, to the point where Satan literally said, if there was 1 or 2 more of you, my kingdom wouldn't even work on this world. And so that just goes to show the impact that the priesthood and the Eucharist can have in our everyday lives. And no matter where we are in life, because of the presence of the Eucharist, we have a chance for God's mercy, and we have a chance for God's love, and we have a chance for God's forgiveness. And that's why Lent is such a beautiful time to think about our commitment to Christ. Just as a bride commits herself to her husband, as a husband commits himself to his wife, we commit ourselves to Christ in the Eucharist. And that is the lighthouse that we can always go back to. And it's because of the Eucharist that the priesthood and marriage and the families everywhere have a chance for God's mercy and God's love.